5 nights had passed without her stepping through the door. On the 6th morning, I bought a small cake and took it to her institute, telling myself I was being thoughtful, not desperate. Birthdays mattered to me, even if they clearly didn't to her anymore. From the corridor outside the lab, I stopped short. Behind the thick glass, a young man stood close to her, smiling as he gently covered her eyes. He revealed a cake already glowing with candles. She laughed, a sound I hadn't heard at home in months. I called her. Once. Twice. 4 times. When she finally picked up, her tone was sharp enough to cut. "What do you need?" "I just wanted to say happy birthday. I don't have time for emotional nonsense. Don't interrupt me again." The line went dead. Through the window, she leaned toward him, eyes closed, hands clasped, making a wish. There was a time I would have barged in, demanded answers, burned everything down. Instead, I felt empty. Like I'd already lost the argument years ago. Outside, the sky cracked open. Rain poured down hard enough to flood the streets in minutes. I stood under the bus stop shelter, watching the cake sag in my hands as the frosting slid apart. My phone rang again. Her name lit up the screen. "I'll be late," she said flatly. "Stop overreacting. You know how important this project is. You've always been content drifting through life, but don't drag me down with you. Why are you still so clingy after all these years?" A red car flew past, spraying filthy water all over me. Through the window, I saw her, phone to her ear, eyes forward. The man in the passenger seat turned his head and met my gaze. She snapped into the phone, irritated by my silence. I caught a male voice in the background, murmuring something meant to calm her. I ended the call. The battery died instantly. Just before the screen went black, a notification flashed. A new story. A cheerful caption thanking a mentor for a ride home, joking about being soaked by the rain. A promise to do it again next year. Her name tagged with a heart. I stared at my reflection in the dark screen. Wet face. Red eyes. I couldn't tell what was rain anymore. I dumped the ruined cake into a trash bin and walked home alone. She didn't come back that night. I slept on the couch, feverish and restless. When morning came, my body felt wrong, heavy, burning. I charged my phone. Messages flooded in. Accusations. Complaints. Compliments disguised as concessions. "I can squeeze in lunch today. That should be enough, right? Just be reasonable for once." I didn't respond. Instead, I opened social media. His profile. A fresh post. A hospital corridor. A woman ahead of him, holding his bag. The outline of her body was unmistakable. I'd known that silhouette since our college days, since vows and photographs and promises. 10 years. I unfollowed him. Then I blocked her number. She had always lived on a peak I could never reach. I'd spent too long climbing. I was exhausted. I swallowed some fever medicine and dragged myself to work. The office air conditioning was brutal. I shook uncontrollably while trying to manage a client call. Someone noticed and quietly placed a blanket around my shoulders. The room spun. When I opened my eyes, white ceilings stared back at me. A nurse explained my fever had spiked so badly I'd collapsed. A coworker had brought me in. "A coworker?" I asked, confused. She smiled. A very kind woman. Very pretty, too. Before I could ask anything else, my phone rang. A new number. Her voice exploded through the speaker. "You blocked me? Are you insane? Something came up last night. And this is how you behave?" I listened without interrupting. "I'm not making a scene," I said calmly when she paused. "You should focus on your work." That caught her off guard. Her voice softened, just a little. "Then don't be fine. Let's have dinner. Tonight." She named an upscale restaurant she loved. Going out with her always felt like receiving a reward for good behavior. "I'll be there," I said. Not because I wanted to reconcile, but because endings deserved witnesses. She wasn't there when I arrived. The hostess recognized her name immediately and seated me by the window. The place was elegant. Expensive. Familiar in an uncomfortable way. I'd seen it before, in photos on someone else's page. The dinner rushed past. My water glass was refilled again and again. I watched the city lights outside, pretending I wasn't waiting. Then I saw her. Black dress. Perfect posture. She stopped mid-step when her phone rang, turned sharply, and headed back toward the garage. I called. Voicemail. Minutes later, she returned the call. "There's an issue with his work. I need to help him. You understand, don't you?" Of course I did. I always did. "We need to talk," I said. "In person." She laughed, cold and dismissive. "About what? You being insecure again? I've told you, we're just colleagues." The line went dead. I stayed and ate anyway. The food was excellent. Better than anything I'd ever cooked for her. Suddenly, it made sense why my meals were never good enough. Back when she started at the institute, I used to wake up before dawn to pack her lunches, worried she wasn't eating properly. Sometimes delivering that food was the only moment I saw her all week. She told me to stop. Said my effort didn't suit her taste. That was the moment I finally understood, it never had. For a while, the pain sat heavy in my chest. Then I did what I'd always done, tried harder. I looked for new ways to fit into her life, new ways to earn warmth from someone who treated affection like a limited resource. It had been that way since college. She was the distant prodigy everyone admired from afar. I was the idiot who kept circling, convinced persistence would turn brilliance into love. Somehow, against all logic, I'd succeeded. I married her. I thought that meant I finally belonged. Once, in passing, she mentioned she liked thick beef stew with potatoes. I took it as a mission. I watched videos, read recipes, ruined pots, burned my hands more than once. Every version fell short. Too salty. Too bland. Too heavy. Too soft. Then there was Kyle, the name that never stopped coming up. Southern background. Easy smile. Apparently a gifted cook. According to her, his stew was unforgettable. I never made stew again. That evening, I packed a suitcase. Just essentials. I called a realtor and asked about short-term rentals. I didn't expect her home, but she walked in while I was zipping the bag. She stopped cold. "What is this supposed to be?" Her voice sharpened instantly. "Another one of your stunts?" I decided not to dance around it. No kids. No shared business. Clean break. I opened my mouth. Her phone rang. She frowned, ready to ignore it, then saw the name. Her expression shifted in a way I'd come to recognize. "Kyle? What happened?" Her voice softened. "Don't freak out. I'm coming." She glanced at me, something conflicted passing through her eyes. "I don't want to argue. We'll talk later. He needs me right now. His landlord kicked him out. He has nowhere to stay." In that moment, something finally snapped into focus. The myth dissolved. The halo vanished. She wasn't some untouchable force of nature. She was just a woman choosing, again and again. I interrupted her gently. "You should go." She blinked. "It's late," I added. "Don't keep him waiting." She searched my face. "I'll be back. Don't go anywhere." I didn't wait. I checked the divorce paperwork I'd downloaded earlier, locked the door from the inside, and slept through the night. Deeply. Notification appeared, a friend request. Kyle. He wrote like someone pretending to be polite while sharpening a knife. Asking me not to blame her. Explaining her kindness. Mentioning her exhaustion from taking care of him. Thanking me. Telling me she said he reminded her of the man I used to be. I deleted the request without replying. At work, I asked HR who had taken me to the hospital. I wanted to say thank you. The manager smiled oddly and told me not to worry about it, suggesting I focus on recovery and deadlines. So I bought coffee for the entire department instead. I didn't expect her to show up at my office. I didn't expect him with her. She called from downstairs. "I'm at the cafe near your building. Come down. Now." That tone. Commanding. Familiar. I grabbed the printed papers, told my manager I had an emergency, and went. They were by the window. Close. Too close. He brushed her hair back like it was second nature. They looked effortless together. Her smile vanished when she saw me. "There you are," she said coolly. "We had to pause our work because of you. Do you have any idea what this does to the project schedule?" I hadn't even sat down. "I don't remember asking you to meet me," I replied. She stiffened. Leaned closer. "Ethan." Kyle stepped in quickly, hands raised, voice dripping with false humility. "Hey, man. Let's not make this bigger than it needs to be." "You're reading this wrong," Kyle said quickly, stepping closer as if he owned the space. "She was afraid you'd misunderstand. She asked me to come because she didn't want to deal with your jealousy alone. Honestly, this is on me. I put her in a terrible position, so I wanted to apologize face to face." Julia didn't look at me. Her disappointment landed on me like a verdict before she turned to him, voice softening. "You don't owe him anything. He's been like this for years. Suspicious. Irrational. Always imagining things. Now he's using divorce as a threat." She raised her voice, sharp and cutting. "Ethan, maybe I've been too lenient with you." Kyle straightened, playing the hero. "I can't stand seeing you upset," he said dramatically. "If someone needs to take the blame, let it be me. Don't hurt her just because you're angry." It was almost impressive. A waitress hovered nearby, frozen with uncertainty, holding 2 coffees. I waved her over. 2 Americanos, I said. Extra bitter. I never liked them. I picked one up and tossed it forward. The coffee splashed across Julia's hair and face, dark liquid dripping down her collar. She stood there in shock, unable to process what had just happened. Kyle screamed her name and rushed to her side, fussing over her as if she'd been attacked. "Are you crazy?" he shouted at me. "If you have a problem, come at me. Do you know what she sacrificed for you? How dare you humiliate her like this?" Julia snapped out of it and grabbed my wrist, furious. Her sudden movement knocked Kyle backward into his chair. "Have you lost your mind?" she yelled. "You think I won't actually go through with a divorce? Try me." I looked at her calmly. "I was just helping you wake up." I pulled my hand free, brushing coffee off my sleeve. Her eyes followed every movement, anger churning beneath the surface. I placed the divorce papers on the table. That's when she broke. "You really want this?" she demanded, disbelief cracking her voice. For a split second, Kyle's eyes lit up, then he caught himself and lowered his head, voice trembling with practiced sincerity. "Ethan, I know you're upset because Julia's been helping me. If it makes things easier for her, I'll leave the institute. I'll give up everything. Please, stop hurting her." He watched her closely, waiting for praise, for emotion. He got nothing. Julia wasn't looking at him at all. She crushed the papers in her fist, staring at me as if I'd become a stranger. "We can forget this ever happened," she said quickly. "Let's go home and talk." I stepped back from the hand she reached toward me. Irritation washed over me. She'd never struggled to dismiss me before. Why was this so hard to understand now? "I mean it," I said evenly. "Read the terms. If they're acceptable, sign them." I turned toward the door. Her voice exploded behind me. "Ethan." Heads turned. Whispers spread. This kind of public scene was everything she despised, especially when it came from me. She hated my neediness, my lack of ambition, my dependence on her approval. She had always stood above me, offering affection sparingly, like a favor. And now she was the one unraveling. "There's a limit," she shouted. "I'm giving you a way out right now. If you don't take it, don't expect another chance." I walked faster. She shoved Kyle aside and ran to block my path. "Julia," he called after her. Behind us, a cup shattered. Kyle had knocked over his coffee. Broken ceramic scattered across the floor, and a shard cut into his leg. I stopped. Julia turned, meeting my eyes. For the briefest moment, something like panic flickered across her face. "It hurts," Kyle groaned from the floor. She looked back at him, then at me, torn, her voice tight. "Ethan, I have to." She didn't finish the sentence. She didn't need to. "Take him to the hospital," she finished. "I'll come find you later." I didn't reply. I walked out. Back at the office, I buried myself in work. By the time evening came, my phone was vibrating nonstop. Missed calls. Messages. I ignored them all. I didn't expect to see her waiting downstairs. Her red car was parked right by the entrance. She was pacing beside it, phone in hand, checking the screen over and over. The moment she saw me, she rushed forward and grabbed my hand. "What are you still doing here?" she demanded. I tried to pull away. She tightened her grip. "Let go." She forced a smile, fingers locked around mine. "You always complained about how busy I was. So I took the day off for you. I've been here for hours, and you never answered." There it was, that familiar tone. As if waiting were some grand sacrifice. Waiting. She'd taught me that skill better than anyone. Back in college, people joked that I followed her like a shadow. After marriage, nothing changed. The pauses between seeing her just stretched longer. Days turned into weeks. Waiting became my default state. A few years earlier, she'd worked herself sick. Severe stomach issues, constant pain. I spent months cooking carefully measured meals, researching ingredients, adjusting spices, nursing her back to health. That was around the time I first met Kyle. I still remember that day clearly. The sun was brutal as I stood outside her building, sweating through my shirt, clutching a thermal lunch container. She wasn't answering her phone. I convinced the security guard to let me go upstairs. "You're Dr. Vance's husband?" he asked, eyeing me up and down. "Man, you're living the dream. Stay home, cook, let the wife bring in the real money. How'd someone like you land her anyway?" His words weren't friendly. They weren't entirely hostile either. Just honest in the worst way. The glass door reflected me back at myself, unshaven, wrinkled t-shirt, tired eyes. I imagined how I must look next to her, always polished, always impressive. I wanted to say I worked too. That I contributed. That I mattered. Before I could, the guard called out loudly, "Hey, Dr. Vance. Your house husband brought your lunch." She stepped out of the elevator surrounded by colleagues. Kyle was right behind her, smiling, effortless, perfect hair in place. Someone bumped into her in the crowd. Kyle reacted instantly, arm wrapping around her waist. "Careful," he said softly. The guard laughed. I felt sweat slide into my eye, burning. She walked toward me, nodded politely at the guard, and spoke to me like an employee. "We're having a team lunch today. You don't need to bring food anymore. It's not really my taste. I'll order something." Kyle peeked around her shoulder, smiling. "You must be Ethan. We're all going out. Want to come? I'm sure no one would mind an extra person." She shot him a look. "Kyle, don't bother." Then she turned back to me, eyes scanning my appearance. "Just go home. And when you have time, try to look a bit more presentable." I waited that day. When I finally ate the meal I'd prepared, it was nearly spoiled. That night, my stomach twisted so badly I couldn't straighten up. My restlessness woke her. She sighed, annoyed. When she realized I'd eaten the food she'd rejected, her expression hardened. "Sleep on the couch," she said. "I have an early seminar. How am I supposed to rest with you making a scene?" Then, almost as an afterthought, thank goodness I didn't eat that. Looking back now, it was never about the food. Almost funny now. Julia had been right about one thing: my head used to be full of illusions, and every single one of them revolved around her. I looked at the woman standing in front of me. She forced a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes, something close to pleading flickering across her face. "Let's just go home," she said softly. It was rush hour. Familiar coworkers passed by, glancing over. I didn't want a scene. Not there. I nodded. At the apartment, I kept my distance. Julia slipped off her coat and watched me move around the kitchen. Slowly, she relaxed. Her voice turned playful, almost teasing. "I knew it," she said. "You've just been bored. Stirring up drama. Honestly, I could probably help you find a better job if you want." She stepped behind me, arms sliding around my waist, breath warm against my ear. I stepped away. I walked past her with a single bowl of pasta in my hands. She froze. "You didn't make anything for me? You said you don't like my cooking." The smile cracked. The anger she'd been holding back burst out. "Don't test me, Ethan. What do you actually want from me?" I swallowed my food and met her eyes, steady and calm. "Sign the papers. Let's end this." She laughed, sharp, unhinged. Pointed at me with a trembling finger. "You'll regret this." She grabbed her coat and slammed the door behind her. She didn't come back that night. The next morning, I took a day off. Met the realtor. Signed a lease for a small one-bedroom. Movers arrived by afternoon. Box by box, the apartment emptied. That's when it hit me, how little of her was ever really there. 2 days of silence followed. Perfect silence. At work, my focus snapped back into place. No more watching the clock. No more wondering if she'd come home. I closed a major deal, and by the end of the day, management announced that the new VP wanted to take the whole department out to celebrate. People cheered. I felt lighter than I had in years. The commission would help. My salary wasn't impressive, and most of it had always gone to her. Living alone meant tighter finances, but for once, they were mine. Then my phone rang. "You moved out without asking me?" Julia snapped. "Ethan, are you actually serious?" That tone, dismissive, superior, finally made something inside me go quiet. I hung up. When she called again, I ignored it. That evening, a group of us headed to a nearby pub. Drinks flowed. Laughter came easily. Our manager took a call and announced the VP was joining us. I felt a twinge of nerves. She was new, transferred from corporate, and we reported directly to her. I'd barely noticed her before, my head had been elsewhere. A coworker leaned into me, already tipsy. "Funny thing," he said with a grin. "You could say she's kind of your guardian angel." Before I could ask what he meant, the door opened. She walked in, early 30s, sharp suit, confident posture, warm smile. Her eyes swept the room, then landed on me. She smiled. It clicked. She was the one who'd taken me to the hospital. As the night wound down, I watched one guy rush out after his wife called to check on him. Something tugged at my chest. In all our years together, Julia had never once worried about me. No matter how late I worked. When I'd brought it up, she'd scoffed. "You're an adult. Handle yourself. Stop being dramatic." I used to envy couples who checked in on each other so naturally. She'd sneer at that too, telling me it wasn't too late to walk away if I couldn't handle her priorities. She was right. It hadn't been too late. I smiled to myself and pulled out my phone to call a ride. A car window rolled down at the curb. "Ethan," Sarah called. "It's late. Let me take you home." I tried to refuse. She insisted, saying she was responsible for her team getting home safely. I gave in. The ride was easy. Comfortable. She praised my work, mentioned how impressed the client had been. Talked about everything and nothing, and never once mentioned the state she'd found me in days earlier. When we reached my building, I thanked her. For the ride, I added, and for taking me to the hospital. She smiled. Just take care of yourself. We need you at your best. It was close to midnight when I got inside. I checked my phone. Missed calls from Julia. And one from my mom. I hesitated, then the phone rang again. Ethan, my mother said, worry thick in her voice. Julia called me. She says you moved out. What's happening? I stayed quiet for a long moment before answering my mother. Then I told her everything. When I first brought Julia home, my parents were stunned, then thrilled. She was beautiful, accomplished, already destined for a prestigious career. The kind of woman neighbors whispered about with envy. My mother had even pulled me aside, asking in a hushed voice if Julia was pregnant, as if that were the only explanation for how lucky I'd gotten. At first, they adored her. They kept their distance, afraid of intruding. Afraid of doing anything wrong. Then my father died. Suddenly. Without warning. We booked the earliest flight home. At the airport, Julia took a call from her lab. She said it would only take a minute. That minute turned into an argument, one of the only real fights we ever had. She stayed behind. I flew home alone. My mother didn't ask why Julia wasn't with me. She just cried harder. Julia arrived late, but she did make it to the funeral. That was enough for everyone else. It wasn't enough for me. On the phone now, my mother sighed softly. I braced myself, for lectures, for guilt, for being told to save my marriage no matter the cost. Instead, she said, take care of yourself. If it's too much, you can always come home. That was it. I rarely cried. But after we hung up, I did. Almost immediately, a message came in. Did you talk to your mother? You know her health isn't good. Are you really going to punish an old woman just to throw a tantrum? So that was her move. I replied with one word. Go to hell. I blocked the number and contacted a lawyer. A few quiet days passed. Then her mother found me outside my office. She'd never liked me. Once, she'd told me bluntly that aside from my face, I had nothing to offer, not my education, not my background, not my career. And yet her daughter had married me. For years, I'd wondered why. Then I remembered something Julia had once said, laughing. You're easy. I don't have to put in effort with you. I'd laughed too. Love had made me stupid. Her mother's face twisted with rage as she demanded to know why I'd moved out. She said no real man walked away over a small disagreement. I didn't argue. I asked one question. Where's Julia? She knew exactly what her mother was like. If this woman was here, Julia was nearby, waiting to benefit. My daughter has real work to do, her mother snapped. Not like you. If you have any sense, you'll apologize right now. Otherwise, don't you dare step into my house ever again. She got louder. People started looking. I carried you for years, she screamed. And you still dare act proud? I bet the reason there are no children is because there's something wrong with you. I never should have let her marry you. That was it. I already sent the divorce papers, I said calmly. Why don't you convince your daughter to sign them? She gasped. As for children, I added, your daughter said she wanted none. Then suggested I get sterilized. Maybe ask her whether she's using me as an excuse. The words were cruel. I knew that. I also knew they'd land. She clutched her chest, cursing me. That's when Julia stepped forward. Do you have to be so vile? She snapped, supporting her mother, glaring at me. Her mother jabbed a finger at my face. Divorce him. Do it now. Let's see who else would ever marry a useless man like you. For the first time, I felt nothing. Not anger. Not fear. Not shame. Just clarity. She stepped in front of her mother before I could say anything. Told her to stop. Tried to soothe her, then turned to me with eyes that finally showed fear. Just come back, she said quietly. We can fix this. I didn't answer. I looked at both of them like strangers. Send me a message when you're ready to sign, I said. Then I turned and walked inside. She shouted my name. Security was called. People started staring. Then, suddenly, everything calmed. Someone authoritative intervened. The guards moved quickly, blocking her path, ushering them away. I never turned around. I sat at my desk and worked. No one asked questions. No whispers. No pity. It was like the scene outside had never happened. She didn't stop, though. Every evening, she waited outside my building. If I left immediately, she followed. If I took a cab, her car wasn't far behind. That's how she found where I lived. One morning, she was standing at the entrance when I walked out. What about your work? I asked. Your research? She looked away. I can go back after you come home. I laughed. Not out loud. Just enough for her to hear the disbelief. I got into the car and left. After that, I stopped reacting. Work became easy. Clear. I delivered results I'd been too distracted to reach before. My supervisor assigned me a major report for upper management. It was the first real sign that I was being noticed. During one meeting, I was told I looked healthier. That my suit finally fit right. Someone even invited me to dinner. I declined. I wasn't ready for anything like that. Gratitude, yes. Confusion, no. For the first time in years, I had energy for myself. I looked in the mirror and caught glimpses of who I'd been before everything revolved around her. Back then, all my bravery had been spent chasing someone unreachable. Now, it belonged to me. When asked if I needed help dealing with her, I said no. One marriage had already taken a decade. I wasn't giving the next one away. Months passed. One evening, she didn't show up. A coworker joked that I'd finally been released. I smiled. Relieved. Then, during a handoff at work, a colleague suddenly doubled over in pain. I rushed her to the hospital. While waiting outside, I saw them. She was there. And he was with her. His hand was wrapped in bandages. When he noticed me, his expression twisted, surprise, resentment, and something smug beneath it. She froze. Then she let go of his arm and walked toward me, clearly panicking. Asked why I was there. Tried to explain. I didn't interrupt. I watched. Detached. Curious. That's when he spoke up. Announced they were living together. Told me to stay away. Accused me of ruining her career. She told him to stop. Tried to explain. Claimed that night had been a mistake. Said she'd been drunk. Said he'd forced himself on her. He stumbled back as she pushed him. His bandage slipped. I saw the marks. Fresh. Angry. Self-inflicted. Blood started to drip. He slid down the wall. She went still. I stood to call for help. She grabbed my arm, begging me not to leave. I felt sick. I pulled away and struck her once, not hard, but enough to break the spell. If you have any sense left, I said, you'll get him help. Now. Doctors and nurses rushed in. He was taken away, still calling her name. I didn't follow. When my colleague came out, I helped her instead. That was the last time I spoke to my wife as my wife. The papers were signed soon after. Later, I learned the truth. He'd been struggling. Hiding it. Hurting himself. By then, I'd been promoted. Transferred. Started fresh. I used my bonus to take my mother abroad. Just the two of us. I stopped looking for news about her. Until one day, her name appeared in a headline. A researcher dismissed. A scandal. A man rescued from a rooftop. The image was unmistakable. Public opinion turned fast. Rumors surfaced. Our marriage was dragged into it. Sympathy evaporated. She lost her position. Vanished into obscurity. I felt a flicker of pity. Nothing more. Life went on. My colleague gave birth to twins. She asked me to be their godfather. I accepted. One afternoon at the park, I was making faces at the babies when I heard my name. I looked up. She stood there. Thinner. Older. As if years had passed all at once. Her eyes dropped to the stroller. Long time, she said. Yes, I replied. She assumed they were mine. I didn't correct her. Silence stretched. I started to walk away. She called after me. Told me she'd never truly been with him. That she'd never loved him. I paused. Just long enough to answer. And? I said. Why would that matter to me? I walked on. Behind me, someone broke down crying. I didn't turn back. I just kept going.